Hey, Jesse, how are you? Glad you could join us.
Hi, Jess. Hi, Jess.
How's it going?
Good. All right, guys, welcome to today's Chalk Talk, and really appreciate our guests. Unfortunately, one of them couldn't make it. Cody Hawkins, with his line of work, had to go into work today. He is a personal trainer, so I do thank very much Jesse Fehr from the Junior A Raiders, Brett McIntyre, who will be a Colorado Mammoth this year, and a kid that I know pretty good, Kyle Playsted. We're going to talk about journey and the process of how you get to the top, and what that looks like. And we're going to talk a lot about bounce backs. You know, what happens when you get a kick in the ass. I've asked the two players to be very open about their accomplishments, and both have accomplished some pretty great things. Brett being all-time scorer in Junior A lacrosse in Alberta. And one thing you won't find on the website unless you look at it, I'm going to embarrass a little bit. He's got almost 200 career playoff points. And that's a lot of points and not a ton of games. And Jesse was part of his journey, and Jesse will get a chance after the two players. So Kyle has to leave at 12:40, or pardon me, 1:40 to get in with Cody's group. So we're going to let Kyle start, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his journey and some of the things that he's been able to do through lacrosse. So go ahead, please, Kyle.
So I started pretty early. Gary got me into it at a pretty early age, at around 3, and then right when we moved to Calgary, I was 4, and that's when I started playing mini tyke, and I had a ton of fun and met some great guys. And our first couple years throughout novice and stuff, we had 33 losses and 1 tie, and this kind of happened throughout the first 4 years. We lost quite a few games, and then my first year Pee Wee, I went out for Team Alberta, and I got cut. And the coach, Jamie Bowen, gave some pretty good feedback, and it was something to work on, and something to look forward to for the next year. And that was a kick in the pants, as Gary would say. So that really motivated me to work harder and make sure that I had a spot on that next year's team. And that year was a lot of fun, and that was the first time that any of us, or most of us, had seen Team Ontario, and they gave us an ass whooping for sure. They beat us 10-1, and I had 1 goal in that game, and their coach was pretty upset by that. And throughout Pee Wee, and it was pretty competitive. We had 2 midget city gold medals, 2 provincial gold medals. And then throughout minor, I made Team Alberta 5 times in a row, box nationals 4 times, and the field U15 team out in Winnipeg, which was a lot of fun. Throughout the nationals, I had some scoring titles and top 10 in scoring. Led nationals in assists 3 times. Led midget nationals and total points. And there were some pretty great guys that went to some pretty great schools. I scored the game-winning goal against Ontario twice. Once in the regular season of play for nationals, and then once in the gold medal game, which was pretty special. Winning the national championship was something that all of us had dreamed of, and Dane Dobie put a pretty great team together, and he built a pretty great atmosphere just to go out there and play our hardest and win. So that was really awesome to get to play for him. And right after that, I went to Trinity Pawling, which is a prep school in upstate New York, and I was a 3-year starter there. And we got to play against some really good guys, some really good teams with a lot of Division I commits, and who do very well in the NCAA. And the work ethic of all those guys at Trinity Pawling is pretty special, and everyone works very hard in practice. That's when you get better, and also extras are pretty important. And it's really good to start that when you're young, just to get your stick in your hand every day and play some mall ball or shoot. It'll really help you in the long run. And that's where I got to college. Bellarmine is a really special place, and I really enjoy it. And this first year has been really eye-opening for me. Just showed me how much I need to work and work harder to fight for one of those spots. I thought that this first semester was a bit of a setback. I went in pretty confident, and as I'd say the first semester went on, it also kind of sobered me up a bit and made me realize what I need to do better this break to bounce back for a better spring semester, and hopefully get some playing time. And yeah.
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle, you said that when you were at Trinity, that extras were important. Can you explain to the fellas what you mean by extras?
Yeah. So this also kind of goes with being at school. Just getting out to the field after practice, maybe staying after practice for 20 minutes and get some extra shots. And I'd say just really working on your weaknesses, which would really help you. Every weekend, me and my buddy Jesse at Bellarmine, we go on the weekends and we shoot for around 3 hours, I'd say, and then get some breakfast. I'd say it's really a really good way to start my day and get out there and work on my weaknesses, which is my left hand and my dodging and feeding with my left and shooting with my left. So yeah.
So you talked about the D1 commits. Ballpark, I know Jess went to Westie, and you guys play against Deerfield and Salisbury, which are pretty top schools. As a ballpark, how many D1 commits would come from each school?
I'd say close to 10 or 15 for most of the really good schools like Salisbury, Westminster, Deerfield, Brunswick, and then there's also some really great schools in Maryland that have a lot of Division I commits.
Yeah, to put that in context, in the 2021 classes, I think we have 6 or 7 in all of Alberta. And so there's twice that many in one school in 1 year. So it's pretty cool to watch that ball. It's awesome.
That many, or there's just 3 right now, isn't it, from the 21s and 2 or 3 from the 2020s?
Yeah. Anything else, Kyle?
Kyle, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you say that this fall was like a big learning experience, what were kind of the biggest takeaways that you're taking with you moving into the spring? you know, because obviously it is a pretty steep learning curve and just getting used to the demands of the schedule and everything. What were your biggest takeaways moving into the spring?
I'd say on the field, just to really be aware of where my defenseman is. Because looking over the film and stuff, there's times where there's been a bad approach or the defender is caught in front of the net when I'm behind the net. So it's a good time to push the ball. And also I'd say use my footwork more effectively and just kind of play smarter because I'm not the biggest. I'm more quick. So just got to play smarter and really use the space that the defender gives me.
Appreciate it.
Brett, do you want to jump in and tell the guys about your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about my story, how I got to where I am right now, and add on to a couple points that Kyle talked about that he made a good few points that I've also experienced. So I'll start out with my minor career. I started playing lacrosse when I was 4 for the Calgary Axemen. Hopefully we got some Axemen in here. Played that Pee-wee. I think first year was the first time I tried out for Team Alberta. Didn't make it that year, unfortunately. It was kind of a heartbreak. You know, a few of my good friends at the time, you know, Jordan Prisco, Dylan Kinnear, a couple of those guys, they made it that year, and I was kind of bummed out that I didn't get to make it and play with them. But I fought through that. The following year, I tried out again, and I made it. Thankfully, that was the first year that Team Alberta actually won a medal at nationals. Both the midget team and the Pee-wee team won bronze, so that was a pretty cool experience. The following couple of years, I tried out again. I made it 2 more times, so that was 3 times for box Team Alberta, and then I also tried out for the field Team Alberta a couple times and made it and played out in Ontario for those as well, and that was a fun experience. Had a great minor career with the Axemen, finishing up midget. I was lucky enough to get drafted by the Raiders, Coach Fehr and Dane and Brider. And that was really a great experience, a great 5 years I had there. Lucky enough to have as successful of a career in junior as I did. Like Gary was saying, I hold the record for goals, points, and assists for all of Junior A in Alberta. Really lucky to get that and have the great coaches and teammates that I had to help me get there. That's for sure. Field wise, I committed to go to UMBC when I was in grade 11 or 10. Currently serving my 5th year there right now. Just came back from the fall. Hopefully have a good spring. But it wasn't always this successful, as Kyle mentioned briefly in his speech as well. My freshman year, I did not play whatsoever. You know, I was a good recruit for them. I had high hopes into what I thought I was going to be able to do. But unfortunately, my freshman year, the coaching staff changed completely. So the people that recruited me were no longer there, and we had a whole brand new coaching staff. So it was kind of back down to the square one. And that was a challenge for sure, because these guys didn't recruit me. They didn't know what I was all about. So you kind of start over with them. So I didn't really play. I didn't really perform that well my freshman year. The following year, however, in the fall, I was doing a lot better. You know, I was probably fourth attackman, maybe switching in 3 sometimes, you know, going back and forth into the starting role versus the not starting role. And then I actually got injured in the fall and I had to have surgery. It was a sports hernia surgery. So it was about a 2-month recovery near the end of the fall. And I really kind of hindered me going into the spring, and that spring of my sophomore year, I didn't really play that much either. You know, injury kind of set me back, and it was really, really devastating for me, and wanted to play that spring. But given that, the following year, you know, I had a new mindset, worked harder, really put in the work, kind of kind of went with what my coach was doing, really fully invest into the program and the work ethic and all that kind of stuff. And I actually got the starting position 2 games into the spring. So I wasn't even the starting attackman for the first game. The first game I didn't actually play at all. We played at Navy. I didn't touch the field. And then the second game against Richmond, I got put in the second quarter, and I ended up scoring 3 goals in that game, and really kind of took the opportunity that I had. Wasn't starting before that, really had to show what I was all about. So I scored 3 goals that game, and then following game against Brown, I put up 5, and I really kind of made a name for myself. So took the opportunity that I had and really made use of it for sure. And I was a starter for the rest of that season. We actually ended up winning our conference championship, beating Vermont in the finals, and going on to the NCAA tournament. In the playing game, we played Marist, and we beat them in the playing game and got to play the number one team in the nation in Penn State in the first round. That game was a bit of a blowout, but we still played hard. We knew they were the best team in the country, so we still put our best effort, and I think it was 25-10 the final. But it was really a great experience playing. That was the first time I played an NCAA tournament. And yeah, that was a fun experience. And then going into last year, in the spring, it was probably the best my team has looked since I've been there, and probably for years before I got there. I think we were 6-1 or 5-1 before our season got canceled. And we were looking really good. And that was my senior year. So, I was pretty devastated, as I'm sure lots of you guys experienced, getting the season canceled due to COVID. And yeah, that summer I was kind of bummed, but I had the opportunity to go back for my 5th year this year. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not, but I ended up doing it. I definitely, it was a good decision. It's fun. We got a good team this year too. We could definitely go far if we are lucky enough to get a season. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now. In my 5th year right now, going in the spring, leaving in a month or so. And yeah, that's kind of my story, I guess.
So academically, how important was that to you, and how many times, what was your GPA, and how many times did you take the SAT?
Yes, that's a good point. I took the SAT, I think, 3 times. And definitely, like, before I committed to UMBC, looking at other schools, academically, it was kind of how the school's academics were, is one of the big factors that made me choose UMBC. It's a good school in Maryland. It's an honor school. And, that was one of the reasons why I chose it over other schools that were, maybe had better lacrosse teams or whatnot, but their academics weren't as good. So that was a huge role for me, a huge part in my decision there. I took engineering at UMBC, mechanical engineering. I actually finished that degree last year in the spring, and I'm starting my master's right now for this year. I got probably 6 semesters with a 4.0. I finished my undergraduate degree with a 3.83 overall cumulative GPA. So it's definitely a big part of my college career was academics. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Only 3.3?
Going into school.
Yeah, only 3.3. Got a couple B's at the end there.
What was your GPA going into recruiting?
Out of high school, I think I had about a 90 average, I believe.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, though, so I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly.
Brett, what was your SAT marks? Because my son just committed to D1, and he's writing for the 3rd time, assuming he gets to write. So.
Yeah, when I wrote it, it was a little different. I had to do the essays, and I know you don't have to do that now anymore or something, but I got 1760 both times, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think, depending on the school, that's a really good score. It's just some schools don't require that high. The Ivy Leagues definitely require higher ones, but like 18 something
Yeah.
that Ivy Leagues really
It's
look for.
changed. It's out of 1600 now.
Is that a 16? Okay. When I took it was at 2400, so
Okay.
800 for each section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Brett.
SATs absolutely help.
Yes.
Hey, Brett.
Yeah.
You were in you were in engineering, and I guess still in with your master's in engineering.
Yes.
Are you
yes.
doing?
Yep.
Right. Engineering is a tough program. Going to school as a student athlete, the demands for your time to be an athlete are ferocious as well. Can you tell these guys kind of what did you do? Like, how were you able to manage a demanding academic program as well as a very demanding athletic program? What did your day look like? What did you do through the day? How did you organize things?
Definitely. Yeah, time management is probably the biggest skill that a student athlete can have, because not only do you have 5 classes a semester, you also have practice, meetings with coaches before practice, film, meeting with your teammates, etc. There's a lot of stuff that really goes on day to day. And I mean, my day usually would look like, I try and get my practices in the morning just because it's before practice. But that really depends on how your practice schedule is too. So, I mean, a couple falls, I had 1 or 2 classes in the morning, one at maybe like 8:30, one at 10, something like that. And then have practice at 11 for an hour or 2, depending on the day. After that, you'd have lift, an hour lift with the team, which you would lift usually 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then depending on your class schedule, you might even have a couple of classes after your practice. I mean, that really kind of is every day. Obviously, some days you'll have more classes than others. Some days you may, depending on your major, you might not have a class at all. But really, when you're not in class, when you're not in practice, when you're not with the team or whatnot, you're really doing work for those classes, because it's not like you're in a class and you're doing homework as the class is going on or whatever. It's a lecture, the professor's giving you a lecture, and then you're required, a few hours of homework each week for each class. So it's a lot of time academically.
That sounds incredible, Brett. I got another question for you. After your injury, sports hernia is one of those kind of nagging, it just bugs you. What was your motivation to recover, to rehab? And what did you do to rehab? Were you working once a week to rehab? What sort of program? Were you working on it every day? What did you do to recover and to build yourself up to the level that you are now?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I work with my sports medicine staff at my school. So following my surgery, I had rehab every other day, and it would just be small things. Because after that surgery, the first couple of weeks, I can barely move. I can't use my core at all. So it'd just be like working on my hip flexors or something like that, or walking around the track, like doing 1 lap every like 10 minutes because I'm walking so slow. But it was definitely tough for sure. I mean, the motivation I had is that, I mean, I knew what I was able to do, and I really love playing lacrosse. So I have a passion for it, and I really want to get back out on the field. And it's very tough watching your teammates practice when you're on the sideline and your sweats, and they're having, they're grinding, they're having fun out in the lacrosse field. And it's really hard to watch that when you know that you could be out there doing that as well. And really just wanting to get back on the field, get fully healed. I don't want to do it too quick where I get another injury or a more serious injury, or I don't heal fully. I took the time, make sure I was fully healed so I could get back out in the field and play the sport that I love. So.
Nice.
So Brett, one of the things that you did, and we kind of copied you with, is you started strength training probably in first year bantam.
Mm-hmm.
Give the guys a little bit of how you feel that helped you, and then we'll get Kyle to pile on if he's got any things. And shout out to your first strength coach.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I probably started picking up weights, not like super aggressively, but probably around like grade 7 or 8 or somewhere around there. Maybe just like once or twice a week, going to a gym near my house. I actually had Reese Dutch was my training coach for a year or two when he was back here in Calgary, when he was a personal trainer. So I worked out with him a little bit. After that, I also had, Sean Hope Ross, who does the Hitman and the Roughnecks. He had him for a couple of years with strength coach. And really, I mean, you don't have to start crazy. I mean, starting at a young age, just kind of learning your body, building into your body as your body grows. I mean, getting strength, kind of knowing your body, your athletic ability, kind of working on running, anything like that is good, and just kind of get you to be more athletic, which is obviously a huge role. But I mean, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. You're not going to explode with muscle in 1 year, right? Like, it takes a lot of time. It's just consistent effort and consistent work and constantly getting better. That's a big thing.
And what muscle groups did you guys start with? Did you start with something or just general?
Pretty general. I mean, obviously I did some bench and squat. Like, those are pretty general ones that everyone kind of starts off with. But pretty full body workouts, speed work, footwork ladders, a lot of stuff like that, just to kind of build on that kind of athleticism that really, really helps you.
Yeah. Kyle, you want to talk about your time with Derek at Athlete Factory?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we did a lot of
And tell them what grade you started at.
I'd say probably grade 8 or 9, and we did a lot of Olympic lifting, and so that's like squats and deadlifts, and we worked on just like running form, and we also did a lot of athletic stuff. And Derek was always on my case about eating properly and sleeping properly and making sure I get the right amount of water. Hydration is very important when building muscle and staying healthy, and putting good things in my body so I can recover and be ready for when it comes to game time. And he was always very cautious when I had the game the next day. We'd stay light and fast and explosive, which I thought was really awesome, because it just kind of kept my muscles ready to perform and be quick as possible. And I thought that my first year and second year midget is kind of where I'd say my second year midget is kind of where I saw that I was able to throw my body around a little more and wasn't getting pushed around as much. And I felt more confident and light on my feet. And that year we had a great year, both at Axman and also at Nationals. So shout out to him for keeping my body right.
I have one more thing to add too, Gary, if you don't mind. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
One other thing I was going to add is just that it's strength conditioning is very important at college. Field lacrosse, it's a lot of running around, so cardio is very important. So a lot of our lifts are all of our lifts are full body each week, each day of the week. They're high intensity. We're always going, we're always working. There's not a lot of time down. And really it's a big focus, because any edge you can get on your opponent really helps you be better than them, or, get that extra loose ball, that one little thing that might change the tide in the game. And also helps with injury prevention as well. So that's one big thing, is that if you're not healthy and you can't play, then you're never gonna be able to get on the field, right? You gotta be healthy. You gotta be there to play. You gotta be able to.
Cool. Why don't we let Jesse jump in and talk about his program, the Raiders?
Actually, Gary, yeah. Gary, can I just jump in? I got one more question for both these guys before. Jesse, if you can hang on just for a wee bit. Kyle and Brett, you both talked about that you had some setbacks early on, like Pee Wee, I think Kyle Novice, even you had some you guys had some teams that you were on that, or where you personally didn't perform where you wanted to go. You didn't make Team Alberta the first time, or you got cut from the A team, or your team had just a really terrible season. How did you guys process that? Did you look into yourselves? Is that something that you had to do better? Or were the setbacks because of others around you? How did you move past those setbacks to get to where you are now? Kyle first, maybe?
Sure.
I'd say it was just within myself, self-confidence is something that I've always had to work on and haven't been the best at. So I'd say when I got cut, and also another time when I didn't get drafted where I thought I should have been, I kind of just leaned on lacrosse to help me, and also it comes back to working out and building your confidence again, and coming back stronger and more prepared to play against some bigger guys, because it's all about getting to the next level. And I'm sure that that's the same for Brett, going to the NLL and playing against better and bigger guys, which is pretty exciting. So I just say I just really want it, and I also love and have that passion for lacrosse. So setbacks are hard mentally sometimes, but it's also a positive thing, because you can really kind of look at yourself and dissect what you need to do, and how to motivate yourself and get better so you can get to the next level.
Brett?
Yeah, definitely piggybacking off that. I mean, making mistakes or not being able to make the cuts for a certain team or something like that, they're really an opportunity for you to improve and really take a step back and kind of, look at yourself in the mirror, like, did I do everything that I was able to do? Did I do all the little things? Did I put in the effort that was required of me? And maybe sometimes you didn't, and that's just the way it goes, but you have the opportunity to improve every time. And one of the big things I know that I struggled with early on at school, my freshman year, not playing as much as I wanted to. One of the big things is just having a short memory. You make a mistake, whatever, get the next play. It's fine. Everyone makes mistakes, right? It's how you react or how you follow that mistake up with that really defines what kind of player you're going to be. So, I mean, definitely short memory, get the next play mentality is one of the big things that can really help you become a better player.
Wow, fellas. Just wow. I'm just super impressed by your introspection and how you turned a setback, a poor result, or getting cut, or not ending up where you wanted to be, into such a positive by taking that opportunity to look at your game. What could you do to improve? And looking at yourself, and Kyle, you're like the passion to get better and to improve. That's just incredible, fellas. You know what? Congratulations to both of you. I think that's just incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you ready to rock?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for your patience, by the way.
Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, I was thinking about it just as we were kind of listening to Brett and Kyle talk there, that I think that there's probably a little bit more value in focusing on what allowed them to kind of get to where they are and do what they've done, than me just kind of talking about what the Raiders are all about. I think that one thing that I will say is that, our club is kind of our core beliefs align very much with what Kyle and Brett are talking about. And that's, to me, that common theme is just the pursuit of excellence and what that requires. And basically, to me, I look at it as self-awareness is sort of a superpower. And the more self-aware we're able to be and evaluate ourselves critically, not in a negative way, but in a way that allows us to then focus on areas that definitely need improvement for us to achieve what we want. you know, when we are self-aware like that, and then we are able to put in the time and the effort and commit to that work, you know, that's when the truly magical things happen, like with the careers of like Kyle and Brett. And one thing that kind of stands out to me, just listening to those guys talk, and you know, having the audience of young players that we have here today, I think is that I don't know if everybody truly appreciates the amount of time, effort, and energy that it takes to get to the level that Kyle and Brett are currently at. And one thing that, and you guys, I'm going to ask a question and for you to speak to, is when you guys are both talking about how much time and effort it is at school to then realize that you might not even get to step on the field for 1 second in the spring, just to try and put into perspective. I know you've kind of outlined our schedule for us. If you could try and contextualize or just kind of give some feeling to like what the grind is like every week at school, especially through the fall when you know there's no games in sight, because I want the younger guys here to hear that from your perspective, because I don't think anybody really appreciates how fucking hard it is to do that all the time. And so I'd like to ask you guys just to kind of speak to that a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, on my team, there's about 48 players. So at any given point, say like in the spring, I play attack, and there's only 3 attackmen on the field at a time, and we play the whole game. So that doesn't matter if there's 8 really good attackmen on one team, the 3 best attackmen are going to play. So for my team, we have, I think, about 10 attackmen, and then we have some offensive middies that also sometimes play attack. So really, you have 10 guys fighting against each other in the fall, in the spring, in the practice, in the weight room, whatever, just to get that edge over each other. And not in a negative way, like, I don't like that guy, I want to be better than him. More just like in a way that you want to push him to be better, and just so your team's better as a whole. But it's tough, it's competitive, you know, 8 to 10 guys fighting for 3 spots. And really, if you're not in that top 3, you might not get any chance to play. So it's very tough, and really just getting any sort of edge before practice, after practice, you know, working on your weaknesses is really, really important.
Yeah, and like Brett said, we have 7 or 8 attackmen, and when we do scrimmages or our full field stuff, there's the starting line, and then there's the second attackman, and then the other 1 or 2 that are on the sideline. So you kind of know where you stand in practice, and it just kind of pushes you. I'm usually with the second line attackman. We had our end of the semester meetings, and coach said I was fourth attackman. So that just kind of motivates me and pushes me to work harder, because I really want to work hard for that starting spot, and I really want it. So yeah.
No, and I appreciate hearing that. And I think, you know, what I just kind of want everybody to appreciate is that you guys are both arguably the best player your age group in the city of Calgary, right, for your birth years. And then when you go to school, you all of a sudden just become one of another 48 guys that are on your team, right? And having to adjust to that and to figure out and adapt, how do I then become you know I am really good, but how do I then translate that at this level where everybody else is really, really good as well, you know? And it goes back to those things of we can't just say, oh, okay, well, coach says I have to be at practice this time and I have to lift these 3 times. That's enough for me to take that next step. That's not how it works. It's everything else outside of that mandatory, you know, appointment time that allows you to take that spot and end up achieving what you really want, right? And I think that for the younger group here, as you guys become more and more programmed all the time and your schedules become more filled with team activities, you guys have to be prioritizing and figuring out ways to get that individual development and learning time, whether it be in the weight room, whether it be shooting extra balls, you know, in the backyard net or wherever it is, whether it be hitting the wall. You've got to be able to carve out that time individually to do those things, or you just don't stand a chance to achieve what you really want to, unless you're so incredibly gifted, you know, that the entire country knows who you are by the time you're 16, 17 years old. You probably won't have a ton of success if we're not finding ways to get those extra reps in. So I think that it's a credit to both of you guys that you clearly have bought into that and executed on that. and it shows with where you've been able to get in your careers. And so for me, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for these younger guys here in terms of process and sticking with things. And because, yeah, it is just such a grind. And I think that there's a lack of appreciation for what the work and the timeline really looks like. I remember when I was probably 12, 13, I went to a camp in the US and was interested in going to school. And a coach told us that if you did 100 passes left-handed, 100 passes right-handed every day off the wall, that kind of puts you in the ballpark for maybe looking at a scholarship by the time you're in grade 11, right? So from the time that you're 12 to basically 17, every day of the year, so 365 times 5 years, whatever that number works out to. Brett?
1900, somewhere around there. I don't know,
Okay, perfect. So 2,000 days, we'll call it, right? 2,000 days times 200 reps with each hand. That's just getting us to the ballpark of looking at a Division I scholarship, as I remember the quote. So that doesn't take into account any of the time that you're doing running, what you're doing in the classroom, all of those things. It is such a commitment to be great that, you really need to be able to be self-aware and ask yourself, what am I prepared to commit to try and chase this? And if you're not prepared to commit above and beyond what the average person is doing, you can't expect great results. And I think that that's just a really important thing to take away. And by no means is that a bad thing either. If you're not committed to the process of greatness, that's okay, because there are many awesome avenues in this game and ways that we can, be passionate about it, have great careers, stay connected, do all those wonderful things. But we just need to adjust our expectations is all, if we're not willing to put in that work. So, that's kind of a big one for me. And I know, like Kyle, I was fortunate to coach you through like Mustangs and things in field, and then Brett obviously in box lacrosse. And you guys know how focused I am on details and wanting to make sure that we are doing everything right and focusing on what we can control at all times. Because my college experience was super similar to you guys. I had to get surgery on both knees. Starting as a sophomore, not starting as a junior now because, one of the best freshmen in the United States comes in and takes my spot. It happens, man. It's life. But what do? You adjust, you rehab, you figure out how to play a new position, you change roles in the team because you just want to continue moving along. But you have to be able to be self-aware, assess, and then put in the work to figure out where you want to get to. So, I think that's kind of the number one message I'd want everybody to leave here with today for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that, to put things in perspective, they talked, each player, Brett and Kyle talked about 8 attack on their team, which means every year 2 attackmen get recruited by CDLA Division I team. There is now 7 or not. Furman has stepped back. But that means that to be recruited as a D1 attackman, you have to be in the top 148 in the world. And so you need to work pretty hard to get to that lofty spot.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining this and listening. I enjoyed sharing my story, and I hope all of you can create your own great one. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cal.
Okay, go get them. One thing, we were fortunate enough to be part of both organizations, the Mounties and the Raiders, and they each have their strengths. And one of the things that we see that's really special about the Raiders is they have been fantastic at being the Raider Nation. And one of the things that you guys traditionally do, which helps you push over the top the last few years, is how hard you guys play for each other, how welcoming you are. My older boy played 3 years with the Raiders and was welcomed from day one. And that's really important that, you guys have held a spot for Jordan McKinnon, who was probably at the opposite end of the lineup of Brad, and he was very welcomed. His mom and dad are still big supporters, and that's something that's really important to win, is to have everybody on the same page. Can you talk about some of the things that you do to support that? And then Brett, maybe you follow that with what it takes as a player to make sure you're part of a bigger goal.
Yeah, certainly. You know, and it was, you know, talking about your son Colton there. He's the perfect example of somebody who understands that it's really important to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And he was so selfless in the way that he approached everything. You know, every day, you know, he was an in and out of the lineup player, even into his 21-year-old year as a junior player. But every single day he showed up with an attitude ready to work, completely supportive of everybody around him, positive, and just wanted to find a way to contribute in some meaningful fashion every single day. And, you know, he remains you know, as far as I can remember, one of the most popular players that we've ever had in our dressing room, just for being an awesome person. Right. And, you know, it speaks to how there's so many different ways to quantify success. And I think that part of building that family culture and sort of being a part of that is understanding that it isn't necessarily about the individual. It's about the group and what we want to do. Setting clear expectations for what that looks like and how we're going to go chase that. And then showing up every day in a way that is going to allow us to chase that. And so, you know, whether that be the habits that we have before and after practice in terms of getting our film in and our preparation, our conditioning, things like that, to the way that we show up to practice where, you know, and Brett can attest to this, we took practice almost more seriously than we took games. We recognized how much development we needed to do. And we didn't limit ourselves by what we thought was required to achieve, say, an Alberta championship or even, you know, winning a playoff series against the team in the Junior A League. We always judged ourselves by the standard of what was it going to take for us to win a national championship. And you know, we haven't been able to do that yet. And, you know, it's going to be an ongoing chase here until we can ever find a way to get it done. But, you know, by holding ourselves to that standard and not just accepting, you know, a certain level of success, that really helped motivate us and helped us show up and continually to like I said, be self-aware and question and make sure that, you know, we're not okay with succeeding with bad habits, that even if we are succeeding with bad habits, that we're going to correct those and have the proper habits, because when the time really comes and push really comes to shove, those habits are what's going to make or break us. And so, you know, making sure that those are ingrained. And then also just for us, we've focused a lot on trying to acquire through the draft and things, like-minded individuals who kind of buy into what we want to do. And so when they come into our program, that transition is pretty smooth and seamless in terms of how they show up to work and all those things like I talked about, and they're relatively selfless. And that really helps just create that buy-in and speed up the adoption of the good habits that are going to help us be successful. So, you know, that's kind of how I view it for sure. And Brett can definitely speak to it from a player perspective as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the atmosphere that I had with the Raiders for the 5 years of my junior career, which were the best 5 years of my lacrosse career, were amazing. I mean, just the atmosphere of, you know, everyone having a common goal, just really unifying the team. And it's not a team of individuals, you know, it's a group of guys that play for each other every day in practice and games and even off the field together in groups. You know, it's a really good experience, and really allows, like, for me, it really allowed me to flourish into the player that I was able to become. And I'm really thankful for the Raiders organization for that. But yeah, it's really when everyone has a common goal and, you know, everyone works hard for that common goal, you know, great things can be achieved. So.
And it's funny because Brett is so humble. And it's funny because, like, even looking back at the last couple of years that you were playing there, Brett, you know, you're just ripping it up. And not that we took you for granted, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time pumping your tires, right? Like we were on you every day.
Yeah.
Like we were riding you harder than we were riding the guys that weren't even playing in games, because, you know, the group was going to go how you were going to go. And, you know, kudos to you and credit, because you showed up every day, you know, like a champion, and that rubs off on everybody else. But and so I think there's a lesson there for other young players too, is that when you are one of the best players on your group or in your team, you set the tone and everybody will go how you go. So, Brett was a fantastic practice player and just showed up ready to work, was always in shape, always had his stick dialed in, always understood what we were asking, was always on time, all those little details that when the best player on the team is doing that all the time, well, then the other players have no choice but to do that all the time. And, we've been fortunate to have players who've received the coaching and stuff really, really well. And that's helped us, but it's a bigger credit to them than to us. And it's tough times because you think about, like how many times we screamed at you for not catching the ball or, all those different things.
It happened a few times.
Yeah, it was tough, but, and by the time you were fifth year, we almost just let you go. We didn't even really say much. It was just kind of like, all right, you get it. We can focus the energy elsewhere. And then you just set the example. So, we were fortunate to have really good players that took things really well for us.
Hey, Jesse.
Yes.
Go ahead. Jesse, so you've talked about a few things, how your organization, how the Raiders are really focused on details, right? Things like being on time, being ready to go, working hard. Mm-hmm. Do you think that these kind of details, these guys in other sports or maybe later on, maybe talk a little bit about those kind of things, and maybe you too, Brett?
Sorry, you just cut out there for a second. Are you just asking about how we could translate the detail focus that we have in sport to other areas of life?
Yeah,
Sure.
With the Raiders organization, you're focused on details, and it seems like simple things, being on time, or being ready to go, or working hard, or putting in a little bit of extra time. Do you think that will apply for these guys to other sports that they're involved in, or maybe later on in life? Maybe address that.
Certainly, yeah. And I think that's one of the things that that sport is able to teach us is, it's cool because very rarely in life can you see input translate to output as quickly as you can in a sports season. So, a kid takes one off season, does a lot of work, really develops themselves. You can see that because there's games, there's ways to kind of chart that. Whereas in your general life, you might be trying to make a change, whether it be to, like, say, lose some weight or, increase your general fitness or all those things. When you don't have the ability to just kind of compete and test that all the time, it can be a little more just unclear of what kind of progress you're actually making. And so I think those habits in sport, when you commit to them and then you start to see them pay off, it's really positive feedback. Or it can be just a wake-up call that, hey, what I thought was enough, an acceptable amount of effort, clearly isn't enough for where I need to go. And it can help you calibrate what works and what doesn't, certainly. And I think it translates to everything. Like, you look at the way that Brett showed up as a lacrosse player is clearly the way that he shows up as a student, and you don't end up with a 3.8 GPA doing an engineering degree and then getting your master's in engineering, before you're 25 years old, with not having great time management, relationship skills with the people who are, your professors and your teachers and things like that. The discipline to do your homework on time all the time, right? At a high level. All those things are, to me, just directly translated from how you show up as an athlete. And so it's not so much about just like athletic habits, but it's just life habits that we focus on. And so I think, and to me, it's like, you go to build a house and you got to have a sound foundation. And so that foundation is all those little things of, those are the details that we're talking about. And so if we build a house that's not formed on those details, it's gonna, when stress comes or the hurricane comes, the house is gonna get blown down, right? So, to me, I think that's kind of where our focus on that came, and I think that you see it in a lot of our athletes who come through and have that focus once they get older, and now they're in the NLL or playing college lacrosse or even just working. They are successful because they understand those habits and what it takes to be successful, and it helps them show up that way in their regular life as well. So.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I just one more question on the nation culture there, Brett. As a player, what were some of the things that when you were in your fourth and fifth year, how you helped the young guys feel more at home, and how important it is extremely important that the top end of your lineup be approachable to the new guys. So what were some of the things that say, I know that Colton was, just really welcomed by yourself and Dylan and Brett Craig and the Getzes. And
Absolutely.
what were some of the things that you guys watch for and just, when you go over and talk to a guy who maybe is not playing, and how do you keep them going?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, we definitely had a really close locker room the 5 years that I was with the Raiders. And I mean, we just really, when we get the people we just drafted, the rookies, we all introduce ourselves, welcome to the family, like you're on the team, you have the same goals as us. I mean, you obviously got drafted for a reason. So, we welcome them into the Raider Nation, and really let them know that we're here to help them as much as they're here to like help our team win. Being in fifth and fourth year, it's really those guys' jobs to kind of pass on the knowledge that they've accumulated over their careers onto the younger guys. And I mean, one of the ways we do that is just like in practice, building chemistry with all the players, like offensively, definitely, building chemistry with certain players, or like certain two-man games or stuff like that. And really also building chemistry with the rookies, even though I might be a fifth year and I'm only going to play 1 year with them, really just passing on knowledge to them, in practice, in the locker room, after practice, just messing around on the floor, shooting around. Really all aspects of the game can just kind of build that relationship with them, I think, is one of the most important things we did.
And I'd say too, Brett, like I think that one of the things that we always tried to focus on was, eliminating that idea that there's vets and then there's rookies, and having that separation. We wanted to blend that as much as possible. And so, at the start of the year, the vets are responsible for making sure the bottles are out, the balls are picked up, everything's ready to go in the room, and then once that expectation is outlined, then it becomes the younger player's job to take those over once they understand what's there. Definitely. So that it's never, you were never coming into the locker room and being like, hey, you first year, do this, do this. It's, if somebody needs to do it, you go do it. And then you explain, hey, I'm a veteran. I shouldn't have to see that, watch you guys walk past it, and then I have to go fix it. That's not the way this works.
Definitely.
Go do that when you take responsibility. It's your program too, right?
Yeah.
And once everybody's on that same team, and it goes to show, because when you look at draft results for Junior A, oftentimes the best players in the league aren't even draft picks, or they're late round draft picks. They're guys that come out of nowhere. And so, to put somebody in a box based on where they're picked or what their supposed role is going to be or who they're supposed to be, that's usually not the most successful way to approach it, because people grow and things change, and people need to be able to find their own roles, and the more space that you give them to be comfortable and support them in doing that, the better result you're going to have. So I think that was a big thing that you guys did really well as a leadership group too.
Yeah, just allowing the rookies, the young guys, to come in and feel comfortable. That first year, it's probably nerve-wracking, and you don't want them coming in and just being, super nervous and, practicing poorly because of, you welcome them in, like make them comfortable so that they can play, the way we know they can play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were probably never felt nervous when you missed one of Holden's passes.
Oh, I didn't get to play with Holden though. He was gone the year before.
Oh, okay.
Or the year that I got there. But yes, I'm sure younger players playing with the fifth years, maybe how they would react that way to fifth year.
Yeah, no, it's they're both fantastic programs, but you guys are here, and that's one of the things that I see that is really fantastic about the Raiders, and that's one of the things that we've always tried in our coaching groups to make the team. I've always thought that your best player needs to be the most accountable, and a lot of times that was Kyle, but Jess is lucky to have another young man that I think is absolutely fantastic, and I held him so accountable in 2018, and that's Keen Moon. What a great kid Keen is, and
certainly
those guys want to be held at the highest regard as well.
And I think, Gary, that's such a good point, is that, you know, if you are, and for everybody listening, if you are one of the better players on your team, want to take coaching, want to be challenged, want to be pushed, because your coach is there with the intention of helping you grow. And if you are struggling to receive feedback, all you're doing is limiting your own ability to grow. And so, you know, it's not always going to be comfortable when you're seeking out that feedback or looking to be pushed and challenged, but the payoff down the line is so much more worth it and valuable than if you just kind of try and live in your bubble. And it goes back again to focusing on those strengths versus those weaknesses. You know, as these guys have moved up, they've realized that I can't just be really good at one or two things. I've got to be really good at 5, 6, 7 things. So how do I improve those 5 extra things that I need when I'm doing my work? And because that's what's going to help me get to the next level, like they're talking about.
And and with Kyle, we always talked about, no matter what sort of year he had, what's next year look like? What are we adding? And you're always adding. And, you know, it's important to understand that. The other thing is, you know, I'm not this guy, but I have seen coaches that absolutely hate a player. Not to say that we all aren't frustrated by one player or another, but if you really didn't like a player, you won't correct anything. You're just going to let him slide through. And at the end of it, he's not going to move to the next level. But you were always nice to him. You never question him.
Yeah.
And that to me is, if your coach isn't questioning you, you need to go and figure out why, because I can guarantee you, I saw Brett as a novice and as a peewee and as a phantom and as a midget, and he was phenomenal. And he got to your program and he got questioned for 5 years. And that's why he got to where he is. So I'm pretty sure that none of you are Brett. So want to get challenged, want to get coached, and it's not a personal thing. It's if the coach isn't talking to you, it means he's done giving you time and energy and his heart and soul. I think that Alan and Jess and myself will say that there's nothing more heartbreaking to see somebody with extreme talent not find a way to push themselves to make it.
Yeah, it's probably the most frustrating thing as a coach. It's the old, you know, everybody thinks that it's all about the wins and the losses, and it's not about the wins and the losses. It's about playing to your potential, and so whatever that is. And so, you know, there's been years with the Raiders where, you know, we're no better than a 500 team, but I'll come out of a 5-goal loss being thrilled with how we've played and how we've developed, because we accomplished 10 things that we hadn't done in any game previous. That's a win for us. That's how you get better, you know, as opposed to years when, you know, maybe we only lose 1 or 2 games and we go up and we win a game by 12 goals, but we play horrific, and you know that that's not going to translate when it really matters, right? It's not about the wins. It's about the development and again, to say it too much, but the process of what we're actually trying to accomplish. And seeing people in groups not hit their potential or waste talent is just a killer. It's so frustrating to see.
Wow, this guys, this is all really, really great stuff. You know what, I think for all the young guys that are listening in, and guys that are soon jumping into the junior program, you know what I'm hearing is what Kyle called extras, and Jesse calls attention to detail. There's some little things that are not onerous. They're simple things that everyone can do. Paying attention to little, or putting in a little bit of extra work to get you to the next level. I'm presuming that all of you are here because you love the game, and that's fantastic. That's so awesome. And maybe use this little bit of passion to spend a little bit of extra time or pay attention to the details and allow this game to kind of take you to the next level. You know, Jesse, I think I've been watching junior program for a long time, and I'm just amazed at the what you have done with the Raiders. It's really turned into Raider Nation, and the family atmosphere that you guys have created is just phenomenal. It's really awesome to see. So congratulations for all the work and that you've done to get it to where you are at.
I really appreciate that, Al. Thanks a lot. And I think I'd say echo the same thing that Brett said earlier, is that you know, it's really not about me and you know what I've done. It's about the people that kind of put in the time and the effort before me, and you know, suffered through some really hard times and put that groundwork in, and you know, and then the players and the people, we've been super fortunate to just have a great group. And you know, it's not one person, but it's truly just been a team effort. So you know, I'd love to take more credit, but I can't, because there's too many people that have helped along the way.
I have one last question for Brett, and I wish I'd thought of this one when Kyle was here. One thing about being one of the better players is from novice on, you got, for lack of a better word, extra attention, and into bantam and midget, you got targeted. And how do you bounce back from that? And really, when the other team has a plan for you, it's rewarding in a lot of ways. So
I mean, yeah, it's obviously, it can be annoying for sure sometimes, you know, when you want to contribute to your team and you're getting double teamed and whatnot. But the best players make those around them better. And so if they're doubling you, then that opens up opportunities elsewhere on the floor for your teammates to score goals, to get open and whatnot. So really, I mean, if you cause an extra attention, then you're helping your other teammates get better, and they giving them an opportunity to make that big goal or whatnot. And really just treat it as an opportunity to improve yourself and help improve your teammates as well.
And I just say too, on that front for you, Brett, like, and this I think is just a great example, is for all the points and the goals and everything that you scored, the focus for you was literally never on how many points or goals you had. You always wanted to win. And if it was that you went 1-1 that night and we won, fantastic. If you went 6-4, fantastic. But it was never about drawing plays for you, getting you the shot. It was whatever was best, and you always got it in the flow of the game, which makes what you did even more incredible looking back on it. And so I think that's a great lesson for everybody, is that there's so many different ways to contribute to the game. And, you know, if you're good and you understand the game well, you will get yours when the time is right. So, you know, you don't need to force it. It comes better when you let it come, and you do it with your teammates for sure.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed in Brett's final year, the other team across town tried to put a very physical defender on him, which was, in my opinion, and I've had numerous conversations, I thought that was a really bad idea. Because Brett scored on average about 5 points a game throughout his career. And it's fair to say in the playoffs, it gets harder to score. I think that's a given. When they tried to rough Brett up, he went through that 7-game series, averaging 7 points a game. He single-handedly annihilated them. And so that's something that's important. If you are a better player and you're getting targeted, you need to step up, because the more you shrink, the more that will be what you see every time. And can you comment on that a little bit, Brett?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I definitely never shied down from a challenge. I mean, if they're double teaming you, it's honestly the best compliment you can get. They think you're so good that they got to put 2 players on you or slide to you early or whatnot. And really just take it as an opportunity to get better, to put yourself in new experiences. And obviously, like Gary was saying, yeah, you don't want to shy down. You don't want to do that, because then they can just eliminate you from play, right? And it's really not what you want to do. You'll have to fight back harder. You have to grind harder, but you know, it's worth it in the end, I think, for sure. So.
And that was something that you learned at an early age, is to push and fight back. And so kudos to you. It takes a lot of emotional and mental strength. And I have seen really good players where it's devastating to them to think the other team doesn't like them. And I always tell the opposition players, if I don't have a plan for you, it means I don't think you're very good as a coach. And, you know, there were lots of guys who thought they were pretty good that I didn't have a plan for, you know. But I think any coach coaching against Brett would think that the ball was better anywhere else but in his stick. And that is a huge compliment when they are, quote, targeting you or have a plan. So take it as such, I think. Jess, what's your feelings? As you coach the sixth or seventh guy on an offense, you don't really have a plan for, you just play good defense.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way we usually kind of approach like preparation is and in our league in particular, there's not many teams, and so you get pretty comfortable and pretty familiar with everybody pretty quickly. So, you know, after about halfway through the year, we don't need to kind of update the scout a ton based on kind of what we've seen. We've already, usually played teams 3 times each, and that's a pretty good amount to get a feel. And like you said, Gary, on the superstars and the really good guys, tendencies, you really want to make sure that you're trying to get the best person on them if you can. And it's all about really just trying to eliminate them doing what they like to do and make them do things that they don't want to do. So going back to that strengths versus weaknesses kind of discussion, we want to make them play to their weaknesses as much as we can. And then on the other players, it's just follow the rules of the system, because the system is designed to produce a certain result. And so defensively, we want to generate or give up shots from these areas. And so, if we're following those rules on those average players, we're probably going to be giving up those shots from those areas where we're comfortable with. And so we don't need to worry about it too much. And then from like an offensive perspective, there's certainly defenders and things that we identify that have different strengths and weaknesses. There are some guys that are really hard to play against in a 2-man situation. So you want to try and avoid putting them in a pick and roll if you can, because they're just very good at defending it. And then there's other guys who you want to consistently attack over and over, whether it be one-on-one or in a pick and roll, because that they struggle with something. And again, you want to take them away from what they're comfortable doing and make them do what they're uncomfortable doing as frequently as you can. And it just gives you, it just increases your chances of success at the end of the day. So that's kind of how we approach that. But I've never been somebody who's super big on scouting reports. I believe in understanding some tendencies and things, and then doing what we want to do and making sure that we're executing what we can and taking care of our own business first. And then if we need to adjust in game because our game plan isn't working for what they're able to do, then we'll happily do that in a game. But, our focus is typically very much on how we want to execute.
Al?
Jesse, could you just, with the draft, what sort of players are you looking to bring into your family, your organization? What are you looking for? Are you looking just for lacrosse skills? Are you looking for more? What maybe tell us what are you considering when you're drafting players?
Yeah, for sure. I would say there's a number of things, and it really depends on what you're looking for a player to be able to do as well, because everybody has their own skill set. And so when we evaluate players who we think have offensive upside, usually we're focused on skill, whether we think that the skills that they currently have will translate when things get harder at junior. Do they have one elite skill set that really sets them apart from everybody else? Those are things that will really turn the head for us offensively. And then, usually, game IQ, super important. Guys who clearly understand and have been coached a little bit, that they know what to do when the ball's not in their stick. And like we talked about, that can make other players around them better. When we see guys that are doing that usually translates well to junior lacrosse from midget and minor. So, that would kind of be a focus offensively. And then, so we kind of break it down into people who we think could play offense, and then there's sort of everybody else. And then that kind of has the groups where it's players who potentially could play offense if things kind of broke right or their skills developed or, whatever. Then a group of guys who think that they might be offensive players, but because they can score a little bit in minor, but reality is their skill set isn't going to be high enough to translate to junior. And then there's the guys that are just wired to be defenders. And so we can kind of group them into those. And then we can kind of evaluate and prioritize what we currently are looking to fill and things like that. But more general qualities that we're looking for, number one, first and foremost, people who love lacrosse and are super passionate about it. I think that, if you come through and one thing that's helped us in our locker room is that, we have a lot of people who are, for lack of a better term, lax rats. They want to play in college. They want to keep playing the game as long as they can. They do things to get better on their own. They're just super passionate. Like we'll see them at the Roughnecks games. That you ask them a question and they'll know what's going on in the NLL. Just little things like that let you know they're passionate. If somebody has that passion, they're more than likely going to buy in when we ask them to commit. And I think that the commitment that we demand from our players, it's a lot. It's a super high level of commitment. And so without that passion for the game, people usually aren't going to accept that commitment and kind of buy in with you to go on that journey. So first and foremost, definitely passion for the game. And then honestly, just like the types of leadership qualities that you look for and just good human beings. I think one thing that we're very careful about is just that if there are like character red flags, be it the way we see somebody interact with teammates, parents, coaches, referees, history of different things that kind of raise a red flag for us. We're very wary of those things because it's actually crazy how easy it is for one or two bad personalities to derail a dressing room very quickly. So we're super mindful of that, making sure that, the people that we're looking to bring into that room are gonna fit in. And I'll be the first to admit we have not been perfect with that at all. We've had people that, we're not happy that they've come through our program at the end of it. But, we try and learn and get better the next time we make a decision like that. So I think those would be sort of some of the general criteria, if that answers your question there, Al.
Yeah, that absolutely does. So yeah, I'm hearing that lacrosse skills are really important, but some character skills are equally important in what you're looking for to build a team and build a dressing room.
Definitely. And sorry, I think one other thing just to kind of, that is important for the minor guys to hear is that when we come watch games or, we just hear things, statistics are really insignificant for us. They're not something that we prioritize very much just because they don't tell the story, in my opinion, of what's really going on a lot of the time. And so really trying to dive deeper into, if you think that you had a great game because you had 4 goals, well, oftentimes if I could go back and watch that game, that might be the worst game that I've seen you play in 3 years, but you found a way to sneak 4 shots in somehow. Is that bad? No, definitely not. But the game that I go watch where you have 0 goals, but you did everything right, somebody might come away and say, hey, I was super disappointed I didn't see Brett score any goals today. And it's like, well, did you see every great pick that he set? Did you see that he had 10 loose balls? Did you see that when we were down by 4, he was the one on the bench that was getting everybody still pumped up? Like, those are the things that actually matter and translate to a group being successful. It's not the statistics that are going to tell that story at the end of the day. Taking the focus off of those outcome results and putting them back again into the process of, how are we showing up? How are we handling our business every day? That's much more what we're focused on for sure.
One thing that's a little misleading is, and it's especially important for the first and second year midget guys to understand. One thing that Brett was extremely successful with was his pick and roll game, especially off the second pick up high and cutting through. But Brett picked to get his teammates open. And I've seen a lot of players who only pick when the roll is going to be open. And it's important to be able to understand that for the offense to be successful, you need to seal for other people's shots. You need to pick to get room for your teammates and not just for yourself. And those are things that I notice that are sometimes, well, I set 10 picks, but yeah, they were all for yourself. Your teammate could have used a seal there to spring them free, and those are little things that the top players, Brett was always fabulous for that. Obviously, phenomenal success, but his selflessness, where he would do for his teammate, is something that always stood out for me. When he had those games where he didn't put up points, he was very integral in a lot of the goals.
So just had a question come in on the chat there, Gary.
Yeah.
Brett Holt just asked, without watching people this year, how are we going to draft? And that's actually a really good question. Just for anybody who's in the boat of moving into junior lacrosse this year, we are going to be pushing the draft back until we can figure out a way to get everybody on the floor, because a lot of the coaches who are involved in junior A and junior B are coaching not just box lacrosse in the summer, but are involved in other programs around the city. So we do have an idea of who people are, and we have seen people play a lot, and it's not an overly big community. And I think one thing that people often panic about a little bit too much in regards to the junior draft in Alberta is, do you know who my kid is and all these things. We certainly do. There's not that many players that we have a hard time kind of keeping a handle on it. We have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Now the challenge for us this year is just going to be that typically this last year, that 16-year-old year, is such a big year for development, physically, mentally, skill-wise, that without having seen people compete over the course of the last year, we need to have an opportunity to see people play before we can kind of draft. So we are exploring options currently on how we're going to go about doing that. But we all have lists that were prioritized heading into last summer, and that unfortunately got put on hold, that we're now trying to reprioritize just based on what would have happened in that last year. But we definitely do have an idea of who and what is out there in terms of the player pool.
Jess, you talked to a lot of the junior B coaches as well, I'm sure, and you probably get feedback from them for kids that show up to their floor times. Would you say it's a benefit for kids to go to all floor times?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in my opinion, you should be trying to get to as many of those floor times as you can, because obviously everybody has preferences where they'd like to go, whether it's which A team, which B team, all of those things. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, you guys don't have any control in where you're going to end up. So show up like we've been talking about, with that positive attitude, with the intention of showing the best version of yourself, and then let the chips fall where they may. And like I said, because you don't have control over it, there's really not a whole lot of value in investing much energy worrying about what the outcome is going to be or who's going to pick you or anything like that. Show up to as many as you can, show up in the best way possible, and then everything will sort itself out. And the reality is that every year there are players who go undrafted in the A and B drafts who end up becoming impact players at each of those levels. So if you weren't to get drafted, that's absolutely by no means a reason to stop or give up or anything like that. It's just another one of those setbacks that Kyle and Brett were able to speak to. Because I think, what did we have, 4 undrafted players on the Raiders last year? 3 of them, I believe, were every game players for us throughout the course of the last year. So, those guys are coming out of nowhere, right? And they just didn't give up and wanted to keep chasing it down. So, yeah.
And one of the most prevalent stories of that is Lyndon Bunio, who went undrafted.
Definitely.
Plays in the NLL now, plays for the New Westminster Salmon Bellies, is really a fantastic young guy. It would have been easy for him to throw his hands up and go, nobody wants me.
Mm-hmm.
He put on his work boots, went to played a couple of years of junior B, and proved to everybody that they had maybe missed something. And that would be my suggestion: is if you don't get drafted where maybe you think you should, go prove people wrong.
Mm-hmm. I would echo that 100%. And it's, at the end of the day, all the draft is just basically putting people in a slot so that we can start to move forward with the process of figuring out our teams. It doesn't guarantee you anything. And it's pretty crazy when you look at the draft results of like the top, call it like 8 picks of the draft every year from, when on the RMLL website, I think they're listed from like 2013, maybe up to present day. Those top 8 picks, which are every year the consensus, like who are the best 8 players in the city of Calgary kind of thing. A shocking number of those players do not end up having great junior A careers, and even in a lot of cases, not even great junior B careers. And I don't know how to necessarily explain that beyond maybe physically maturing really early and then not developing, thinking that they've already made it by the time they're drafted and not putting in the work to progress past that point. There could be a multitude of reasons, but at the end of the day, all the draft is just here's your spot moving forward. Now, what do you do with that opportunity? So if you're not drafted or you're not drafted where you think you should have been, all you can do is what's within your control, and it's just show up and keep competing. And if that starts out at tier 2 junior B, then hey, show up and be the best player on the floor. Because if you're the best player on the floor at tier 2 junior B, somebody in junior B tier 1 will take a look at you. And then if you become the best player on the floor at junior B tier 1 and you want to move up to A, somebody will take a look at you for junior A. So, if you do the work, the people will come to you and find you for sure.
Has anyone got any other questions? Pop in the chat and or unmute yourself, pop in. While we're waiting for that, I'll ask Brett one question. Would you say that the assistant coach your second year of Pee Wee was probably the best looking guy you've ever been coached by?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Good answer.
I like it.
I'll step up and ask both Jesse, because he played a couple of NCAA sports, if I'm not wrong, and also to Brett. Where was the biggest athletic step that you had to take? Was it midget to junior A? And I know, Jesse, you played pros and Brett's about to. So where was the single biggest athletic step? Was that going high school to college? Was it midget to junior A? Where was the biggest step?
It's a really interesting question. I think for me, it kind of all goes back to everything's relative at the time you go through it, right? And so I moved into junior in my second year of midget. So I was 16 or 16 years old when I played junior for the first time. I think I was 6'1", 156 pounds, like trying to cut the middle on 21-year-olds. Like that was a massive jump for me at the time. It felt as big as anything in the world. And then going from high school to college, it was like, okay, I'm a pretty good athlete. I've got some skill. And then you go into a college weight room for the first time and you see guys running around and you're like, whoa, baby, I've never seen anybody squat that much weight or bench press that much weight or run that fast, And so that was a big jump. And then you kind of just adjust as you go. But the jump from even like senior A, the WLA to the NLL is just a massive leap. I think it's interesting because I love to go sit up high at the Roughnecks games to watch, because I like to just watch the flow of the play as opposed to, I'm not there as much for the atmosphere and things. It's more, but I just like appreciate the lacrosse. And so I like to watch it from up high. But I do try and, at least 3-4 times a year, sit in the lower bowl for a half or a game, because I forget how big and how fast and how strong everybody is. And when you look across the NLL now, and guys are just massive and athletic and fast and strong. And so it is a big adjustment. And for me, just, as an athlete, that was tough. It's just a huge jump. So that's kind of how I would put it. But looking at a guy like Brett, when he makes a transition, well, he's stronger than I was, he's quicker and he thinks the game better than I did. So, he'll be able to carve out a niche and find a way to do it. It's just a huge, all of a sudden Gary, you talked about Ryan McLean being a big defender that Brett's playing against, and Ryan's a big man. Pardon?
I didn't talk about him.
Okay.
I don't think I said who it was.
Okay, so a big defender from the Mountaineers, he's a big human being. And then, you go to an NLL practice or game and you look and he's just kind of blends in with everybody. And so everybody on the floor becomes that big, strong guy. And so that was a huge, huge jump for sure at the end of the day.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that as well. The jump from minor to junior and then also from high school to college, mainly just because in minor you're playing with guys that are either 1 year younger than you or 1 year older than you. So there's not that much variance there can obviously that variance in size, but it just gets expanded once you do that gap from minor to junior, because you're 16 playing against 21-year-olds that have been playing in the league for 5 years, and they're experienced and they're massive. And yeah, it's just a big change for sure.
And so that just leads to another question, Brett. One of the things that we always worked on with Kyle is, from the time he was 5, is pass the ball, which then keeps your chin up. And one thing about Brett's career, it wasn't a secret by the time he got to junior who he was. And the quicker that you can move the ball and more aware you were, I don't think I ever saw you get hit really hard in junior.
No, I didn't really get many big licks in my career at all. So I was very fortunate enough. Don't let the ball die in your stick. Keep the ball moving. Involve your teammates.
Brett, how many goals do you think you scored up pick off ball?
Oh, probably like over half, maybe. Half my goals.
Up pick, because if you don't have it in your stick, they can't hammer on you. So
Exactly.
Get open, and then just all you need is 2 seconds. 1, 2, score.
Bingo.
You figure out a way.
Well, guys, we're at the hour and a half, and I just cannot thank you two enough for coming and sharing with us today. And thank you to all the guys that joined us. This was fantastic. I hope you guys picked some stuff up off of this. And, thank you so much. And Brad, I know you're going to do great with Colorado, and
Thank you.
I can't wait to see you. So thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me. Appreciate it.
Everyone else, have a great holiday season, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome, guys. Thank you, Brett and Jesse, for sharing just some great advice, some awesome stories. We really appreciate your time. For the rest of the guys, next week we're going to have another session. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the mental aspects of the game, how to increase mental performance, how to increase resilience, how to incorporate some different elements into your game. So we'll send out some more details through this week, and we'll look forward to seeing you in about a week.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks, Brett.